On the MCAT, students have a lot of difficulty with timing. And unfortunately, for average students taking this exam, taking more than 1 minute per question on sections 1, 3, and 4, so Chem Phys, Bio, and Psych Soc, often hurts them more than it hurts the high scorers. Here's why. One of the central tenets of MCAT Savior's timing strategy is that time control equals test control. Because at the end of the day, the MCAT is a time-based exam. If you had all day to do it, you'd probably score a lot higher than in the artificial time-based setting that they've given you. Now, why does this matter? Specifically for sections 1, 3, and 4, so our Chem Phys, Bio, Psych Soc, the issue is that most of these questions are going to be finished in about a 45-second to 1 minute 30 range. Now, we go over the timing details in very specific detail in our timing and test taking strategy course. But for now, let's just take these numbers and go with them. The reason why average students tend to struggle a lot when their timing on each question goes above a minute or above a minute 30 is because in sections 1, 3, and 4, all of these sections are content based. So the easier you're able to recall, remember, and use the specific content facts that are needed for each question, the quicker the question progresses. And it's very interesting because you can see a trend in which a student might think that a physics question is really hard. But another student might look at that same physics question and they might think it's really easy because they remember the specific fact, detail, or formula that they needed to solve that question, and therefore they can do it a lot faster than an average student. And that's why people who are very good at this exam tend to be very quick on questions, especially in these 3 sections. It's pretty much because their recall, retention, and utilization of the information is so good that instead of taking a minute 30 to do complex questions, they take a lot less. Unfortunately, when you're an average student, you might not clearly know the lines between what you know content-wise and what you don't know, and this can kind of encourage you to spend more time on a question than you really should. But one interesting thing that we found when we examined thousands of students' performance on exams is that as the timestamp increased, on sections 1, 3, and 4, accuracy often went down. And what we mean by increase is that if you're having a timestamp that's above 1 minute 30 or 2 minutes, the accuracy of those questions usually wasn't very good, meaning that students were missing those questions on average more often than not. And pretty much it basically boils down to what we just mentioned, with the fact that if you are struggling in these content-based sections, the struggle is basically rooted in the fact that you might be missing a small piece of either passage-based content or outside content that you had to have memorized, and since you missed it, you're unable to fully finish the question and are basically just taking more time to do it. Unfortunately, as the time increases in these situations, the accuracy goes down, and there's not much we can do except to not play AAMC's game. Be a competitive test taker and compete at the same level as those higher spec students. We should strive to keep our timing pretty clean and do the best we can to manage our time appropriately. And another interesting thing you see when you analyze the timestamps of individuals that are in the 90th percentile or higher is that for the vast majority of their timestamps, they're actually under 1 minute 30, which is crazy when you think about it. But at the end of the day, that's just because their content knowledge is so good that they speed through a lot of questions that would have been harder for an average student. They then take the time that they saved and redistribute that to the most challenging questions to further increase their score. So the big takeaway from this lesson is when you're an average student and still climbing the score ranks until you get to about the 510, 513 level, make sure that you're very cognizant about how much time you're spending on each question. And if it gets beyond a certain limiter time, let's say a minute 30 or 2 minutes in your situation, feel free to cut that question off and move on to another question, which you might have a much higher chance of getting correct and adding points to your scaled score at the end. It definitely isn't easy to manage your time, especially during the stress of test day, but we hope a lot of our strategy, techniques, and tips will help you out there. Alright, that was a complicated lesson. If you still need help, check out our full-length blog post that we linked in the video description, explore more of our YouTube channel, or just head on over to mcatsavior.com where you can get all of our strategy courses for free.